Hello there, and welcome to a new build guide for Age of Wonders 4. I had to play a Chaos build for the Reavers one day. It's, after all, one of their main elements, and this is what we're going to do here. It's a Chaos HORDE build, and it's working out terrifically. We're focusing mostly Chaos Tomes in this build, with a splice of Materium and Order. This works out really well, and allow me to introduce it to you. So, let's start with the cultural and racial traits. I went with good old Sneaky here because it's just a classic on the Reavers. They can trigger flanking so well, and it's just one of those things you love to have on them. I can strongly recommend it. Overwhelm Tactics is another part of this one, which is, in my opinion, something you shouldn't exchange because we're playing on crits with all the tomes, and this is just so good to have. You could easily put out Sneaky or Adaptable out of that build, but Overwhelm Tactics I see as an important part of it. Adaptable is pretty cool because I play a very swarmy build, and therefore they grow their ranks faster and they grow stronger faster, and it's really a noticeable little advantage there. Cultural, I went with Prolific Swarmers, which is, for me, the must-have in this build, out of the simple reason that it cuts the unit upkeep down so good for you. The other traits there are quite nice, especially the first one here, lowering the food cost for new populations. It's a really good thing for the Reaver culture, which has no innate food increaser, so you can take some good advantage out of that. And starting with a rank more, that always is good thing. Is a good thing. And powerful evokers, well, exchangeable, but for me, it's a real power pick on the Reaver culture. By now, I pick it almost on all my Reaver builds, simply because you get to start with an Overseer unit, because you get only a supporter, you have no battle mages, and my Reaver builds always end up quite support heavy one way or another, and the extra combat casting points and the extra ranks never hurt. But feel free to exchange it. I personally see mana channelers as a very worthy thing because summoning stuff is really, really good for your build. You get plenty of options for that. Or feel free to tell me what your personal favorite is there. Okay, moving on over to the tomes. This is the first build for the Reavers that I went into, and starting out with the HORDE tome, which is a shame that I didn't do it earlier because it's a highly synergistic tome with the Reavers. Several reasons for that. First off, Spawnkin is amazing. The evasion for heroes is really good. It's easy to spot the 20% extra damage, but the 10% evasion makes it harder for the enemies to nuke them from afar. Really good stuff. The Houndmasters are surprisingly powerful for the Reavers. Several reasons. The Warhounds have a marking attack, our trademark move for the Reavers. The Houndmasters hit harder against marked targets. We are playing a crit build, so their singular attack with a high damage number, well, they're just really good for that build. Biggest downside, they're terribly squishy. Basically, they share their HP with the Warhound they summon, so you have to take good care of them, either or otherwise they die. I see them as a very good early game thing, but later down the road they just die too quickly. Fury of the Horde is a nice early game steroid, pretty costly, but if your army early on consists mostly of tier 1 units, it's really good. Same goes for Blaze of the Horde, nice nuke, not much more to say. And Summon Irregulars is really cool. You can just bolster up your ranks with mana there, with little to no costs. Battleseeker training is just a good add-on. You should really not sleep on that. It's just a novice level skill, so everybody can pick that up, and it upgrades your tier 1 units massively. The mob camp is really useful for this build, lowers the costs of your tier 1 units, is a deployment location, and gives you food and draft. Really good for a militaristic build. The second tome is the Tome of Zeal. Feel free to change it if you want to. I do see some options in the Materium area, but this one, I keep picking it because it's highly synergistic with the Reavers yet again. Mostly because Condemnation lowers status resistance, means it's easier to abduct people with your Overseers. Really powerful synergy there. Legion of Zeal is a +2 damage can scale up to +4 if the enemy is condemned, and I love picking it because it's so multifunctional. Unlike other enchantment spells, I don't need to put up 2 enchantments, one for the melee, one for the range. Here you get all in one go. You don't get a tasty percentile bonus like on the elemental blades, but it is very cost efficient, and that's what I like about it. Inspiring chant is one other part that I saw as the primary reason why I didn't exchange it with something else here. The Materium Tomes, like I said, are really tasty, but we're playing a crit build, and this allows us to buff up our moral damn cheap on a huge area. And on top of that, all our fighters get even a 20% damage boost out of that. This is such a powerful buff spell, you should not underestimate it. This thing, combined with overwhelm tactics, can lead to such a high amount of crits early on. It's brilliant. I've been dominating this game on brutal difficulty with just Horde and Zeal tomes. I was surprised how well I was faring. Well, Zealots are yet another throwaway unit that you can spam onto the battlefields. They inflict condemnation. That's pretty much the only thing that is unique about them. Fanatical Workforce is an amazing spell for this book because, hear me out, your cities aren't growing fast anyways, and 60 production for 3 turns let you rush several projects. This spell can help you in getting your early game goals done quicker, or just develop your cities faster. I like that one. Well, Hero Skill Condemn, not much more to say. It is pretty cool because it's a free action though. That's one thing that I really wanted to point out. And here we have with the Circle of Zealotry. I don't use it that much, but it's yet another stability and draft increaser. Tier 2 tomes. Revelry. You know, I can't play a crit build without Revelry in my book. The Blood Fury weapons are just too good. They apply to most of your roster, not onto your mage locks. That's a real tragedy, but beyond that, all your frontliners will benefit from that strongly. And it's just so good to gain moral and strengthening when landing a killing blow, and the +2 there synergize quite nicely in the rest of our build. Revels of Blood, strong siege project. Revel is hard, strong minor transformation. It's really, really good. Revels of Carnage is also, yet again, another little thing that you can utilize. So what I did a lot with this build is try to nab evolution units, the ones that turn into something more powerful, and abuse that spell here. It's a really nice little strategy. And yeah, Scalds. I love these guys. Super strong supporters, inflicting insanity, buffing up your damage yet again. For a crit build, they're just too good to pass. And the Song of Revelry is not so much for the restoration, but more for giving you a new repositioning and a new crit steroid again. So this is really, really good. And Revel is Triumph. I recommend you to have that on every one of your heroes. Once your crit machinery starts rocking, this is just the icing on the cake. And Carnival of Flesh, I love it for what it does. It's yet another booster for our food and draft production, so your cities will be always quite big. Artificing is the next one that I picked up. We're playing a crit build, and this is just shockingly good, as it is also influencing your skirmishes. And since we do have pretty powerful skirmishes in our build, this extra critical hit chance tops off their damage so good. And if you manage to abduct other skirmishes or other units of other cultures, you can apply that there as well. This is where you will start landing crits very, very reliably, and I love it for that. The Iron Golem is a really, really good thing. 2 reasons: we synergize with it later with our tome selection even more, and it's a reliable tier 3 shield unit that you can spam henceforth. The Reaver culture falls off in defensive scaling. Always. They need something to protect them, and this is just so good. You don't have to rely on abductions alone. These guys are there for you. Bolt Repeaters are cool for siege projects. They give you, again, a splashy AoE thingy. I like these. They don't deal that much damage, but I like every single advantage that I get my hands on. And siege magic. Hear me out. This is way better than it looks like. you rock a lot of supporters in this build again. Overseers and Scouts are an integral part of your army anyway. More damage, siege damage, so you can wear down cities faster, and you can destroy obstacles. It's a powerhouse enchantment for every build that leans on supporters. And artisan fortifications, it makes your cities die less fast. Whenever I play super aggressive, the AI turns on me like crazy. Okay, I have a lot of war here. And that makes your city just die not so fast, so you can rush to the protection of your city a turn longer or something like that. Really good for builds like these. I was surprised how good it felt in the long run. And yeah, Golem Assistant, while we're at supporty skills, it's a nice little throwaway unit that's available for every fight, and I end up having it on every hero because I love throwaway units, but that's just me. The Golem Mine adds in some much needed income. I love it. It's just good. Spamming out a mine wherever I want. What's not to like about that? Now, next up, the Dreadnought Tome. This is, for me, one of the must-have tomes for the Reavers. I end up playing it on almost all Reaver builds. Several reasons speak for that. Pinning Barrage is marking enemies on a 2-hex radius, hurting them, and immobilizing them, making them vulnerable to subduing by your overseers. It's an amazing combo, and that spell is so powerful with Reavers that I end up picking the tome alone for that spell if I have to. It's just that good. But it gets even better with this build. Warding Metals is, as a matter of fact, highly synergistic with our build. It's amping up magical resistance because we have Iron Golems anyway for a frontline, or whatever shield unit you might have abducted. Destabilized Mana Core, well, it's a blasty spell that marks again. That's the best part. It's just a 2-hex radius mark, even if you miss the explosion, which disrupts enemy enchantments, which is really good as well, but it marks, 2-hex radius mark. It's amazing. The rest is just bonus. And then there's tuning kits. We lean on support units. We can overcharge our golems, and that makes them hit quite hard all of a sudden. I love this. Okay, they might get stunned at the end of the turn, but it's not that bad. You have the golems most of the time anyways to stand in front and block and open your ranged units like your skirmishers, supporters, and other stuff to blast, so it's really good. Yeah, ironclads are, well, I don't like them too much. They're quite powerful, but I don't like their clunkiness, and there's other tier 4 units I prefer more. I played them, I didn't just get into them. Maybe I'm missing a point about them, but I mean, they deal a lot of damage, 40 points of damage for just one shot, knocking an enemy back. There's nothing to sneeze about that, but they just didn't feel impressive enough for my taste. They're solid, though. Don't get me wrong about my personal nagging here. Alright, Artillerist. Pretty brutal skill, but it's a warfare skill, so I end up not having it too often because I'm quite a support player. And War Foundry, well, if you want to print out units like crazy, go for it. But I end up not using it too much. And our last tier 3 tome is going to be Devastation. For a swarmy horde build, this is fulfilling all your remaining dreams. I'm going to start out with the Flame Burst weapons. It's again more critical hit chance. We're fulfilling our dream there, but also we're starting to explode people that we kill. And, well, you might feel free to put Devastation as your first tier 3 tome and then the Dreadnought. Up to your preferences, but this is just the killer thing. You should go for that one as quick as you can, in my humble opinion. This is just game-changing. And, well, Warbreed, you have a nice tier 4 shock unit. I prefer these over the Ironclad because they can go in, hit hard, and cleave. Cancel defense modes with that, and personally, maybe I think we have already too many good ranged units already. I don't know. I love these guys, though, for what they do. They're just a little bit costly for the fact that they like to die quite quickly. Devastator Spheres, if you get to build them, they're cool. Roll in, explode. Nothing more to say. I like them. Focus of Devastation, though. This is much better than it sounds. Alright, we have the Demolisher already from the other spell, which is a shame, but the 60% chance of canceling defense modes makes your supporters just so versatile. They debuff like crazy at that point, and just knocking shield units in the middle of a cluster from afar out of their defense mode is amazing. Just aim for that shield or support units that boost the defenses of their vicinity, and yeah, you can just break that with this spell. That's why I love it. It's really powerful to break up these super tanky clusters. Unleash the Warhounds. Yeah, 6 throwaway units for a siege. Hell yeah, I'm in. Nothing more to say, it's just a useful spell. All of these spells in the book are synergistic with you because you want to deal a lot of warfare on your vicinity, so go for it. And yeah, it's also available for your heroes. It's again a warfare skill, so you need to be in that tree. So, tier 4, well, we're going to go all in for chaos. Just want to skim over that real quickly to get over to the next part. Demonkin is where you go completely bonkers because you start to fly and all your units, your racial units, start to frenzy. Yeah, up to 50% more. On top of all the crits we already do and all that stuff. We also gain access to summoning demons, which is pretty cool, but I end up not using it too much because I like my roster as it is already. But for me, the Chaos Channeling Tome is the more interesting one. The Demonic Focus is yet again a bonus for your supporters. At that point, you will notice that these guys are fully fledged damage dealers, and yeah, I like this. This build is really good at pumping up your supporters into something special. But you also get the Sign of Flame, which makes Vengeful Flames, and Fury Wake, since you get immune to burning out of 2 sources. It's really good. You might also just backtrack and skip the Demon Gate one because I feel like this tome needs some love. I don't think it's powerful enough, but maybe that's just me. Golden Horde, super synergistic. We can't just blurt out a army for 400 mana. Fan the Inferno just is hurting everybody, and Gremlin Ambushers gives you the extra thing on every combat. Keep in mind, you can target enemy cities with it as well. That's really important because it's really fun to do it when you're sieging enemy cities. Yeah, and, well, this Chaotic Rebuke thing is crazy powerful. Seriously, pick it up if you can. Because, I mean, I don't have battle magic skilled out that often, but inflicting status effects just for free is amazing. Alright, enough about the tome section. Quick glance over our roster. The tier 1 Harriers and Mercenaries are amazing to have, and they get boosted up by the Horde tome to insane levels where you can just kill off whatever you want with them. At the end of the day, your early roster should be always just refilled with these guys. If you want to abduct more people, use more Harriers. If you just want to have more of a solid frontline, use more Mercenaries. The Observers can be used as a marking machine. They have an insanely high range for that, and feel free to add in a couple of these into your early game fights. It's really surprisingly good, but you should really try to unlock tier 2 ASAP. Research a Houndmaster if you can, as your first project even, because these guys kick butt. You get a free Hound every fight, and their shot is so obscenely strong early on. You can dominate all the early environmental fights so good with these. I ended up getting so much money and units and whatnot out of the early fights that I can only say 2 or 3 of these guys. Don't care about them if they die around turn 30 to 40, but they really will pull their weight until then. Mage Locks are your go-to ranged attackers. What can I say? You're a crit build. You don't get to apply all the crit bonuses. You have to rely on overwhelm tactics and high moral on these. So if you go for moral buffing, never forget to buff your Mage Locks because they don't receive the majority of your sweet crit enchantments. And yeah, Overseers, they cancel retaliation attacks, they mark as well, and they subdue people and they patch up people. They're mandatory for your build. You should have in every banner at least 1, preferably maybe 2, but you should also mix these with Scalds as soon as you have access to them. But just keep in mind, the Scald is not a real supporter in the form of healing. His support is an offensive support. He boosts the damage, he incapacitates enemies. He does only apply a very soft smidge of regeneration, which will act only over time. But it's easily cancelled out by any form of damage over time, so if you want heals, you need Overseers. You don't have too many heals in that build, so use them wisely. Dragoons, I end up not using them as much as I could because I end up abducting so many tier 3 units, and the iron golems are also an available point there too. So I think they're stupidly good at what they do, but they're also costly, so use them to your own liking. They should or could replace your Harriers depending on your situation where you can get your mobilization from. And Mage Lock Cannons, they're just stupidly good. Invest your War Spoils if you have some, because they just add in a lot of BAM, and they're just really, really cool, because I ended up, as you see here, with stupid amounts of War Spoils and I didn't know where to put them all. And apart from that, you're always open to re-summon stuff that died on the fly. Let's move on over to the strategy part. So I want to go real quick in here and point out that here the Call of Chaos skill is something that I recommend you to pick up as the very first thing, because the units you can get out of that are crazy good. I had a tier 4 unit out of that in the first 10 turns once, and sometimes if you crack open a infestation early on, don't do it without that one. You're so good at getting free units with that build. Impressment, always nice to have. Battlefield looting, but what I want to point towards to here is Lure of the Horde. Don't skip that. It's for this build so amazingly good to get all those free units. At the end of the day, if you can't pay them or anything like that, you can always disband them. But getting free unit replacements after each combat is stupidly good. Apart from that, raiding, healing, buy raiding, and getting more rewards out of that is also really powerful. And you might already notice our build here goes very, very strong into warfare. The Materium influences you can have lead you to mana mines and easy expansion on the battlefield. And the most important part, or interesting part to point out, if you go for powerful evokers, you have access to knowledge extraction, but you also get access to the all-seeing trait, which allows you to use Whispering Stones everywhere and extremely effectively for knowledge gain. So since you are opting into a smidge of order, you can go for diplomatic channels for a Whispering Stone. You can get here Whispering Stone. It just takes way too long for this build to get there, but you can grind out a nice amount of extra knowledge with that. But strong emphasis on the free units and the benefits of killing stuff. This is really powerful for this build, and it helped me keeping up the momentum constantly. A lot. Alright, apart from that, I already pointed it out, go on aggressive early, build your first city as quick as possible, and go into war with a free city as quick as you can. Basically, the moment you have 2 full army stacks, you're typically good to go. These 2 army stacks should have tier 2 units though before you go against free cities. And always, if you play this in Brutal, keep an eye on the composition of a free city. Goldspire, for example, was a laughably easy free city. They just had nothing too powerful going on for them. The people down there from, what was it? From Blinsk, with that, which I conquered lately, were horribly powerful with tier 4 tome spells and whatnot, so you really have to pay attention to what kind of enemy you pick up, but you should totally try to dominate a free city in your vicinity as quick as possible. If you don't want to, or if you can't pay the Imperium costs to take them over, vassalizing themselves helps a lot. And also feel free to use the intimidation war spoils tactic to get some vassals, because you are into order, you can use vassals, you can get long-term relationships going with this build, and that's a really, really strong suit of it. Apart from that, this build is always strong. You should always try to abduct strong units for your roster, and basically the more units you manage to abduct, the more big you can go. So another thing that I want to point out why I stress out these free units, or the value of these free units, I got a lot of, where are they? They're all evolved by now. The tier 1 skirmishers out of the nature book. I got a lot of these, and by now they all turned into this. So I got a lot of free shield units. I just want to point out another time, when you abduct units and you notice that they can evolve, this build is extremely good at picking them up in tier 1 and fostering them up until they turn into something magnificent, like a tier 3 shock unit. This is something you can do with this culture extremely well, and if you want to opt into that strategy, I highly recommend you to pick up the traits of experienced leader, the support trait skill, so they can learn to grow stronger even while there is no fight happening around them. This pays off in the long run a lot. Also, summonings are just a powerful thing, and every type of restoration or healing spell you can get on your heroes helps your strategy out a ton, because you have a lot of supporters, but you have somewhat offensive supporters. I also want to stress out at the end of this video that every one of your overseers is capable of taking out an enemy for an indefinite amount of time. If he lands the subdue on somebody, the subdue does end if the overseer dies or the combat is over. So that spell is a permanent crowd control. It's just that good. So try to get also, and that's a second objective for abduction, every unit that is good at immobilizing people is also a massive gain for your build, because you just have the Harriers and a couple of native spells like the suppressing barrage. That's pretty much all your immobilization capacities in this build. So you would benefit a lot from picking up some of the stuff there, be it by liberating a city and keeping their native populace because they have a good stunner, whatever. Just keep an eye out for immobilization. It really synergizes darn well with your build. And that's that. Not much more to say about it. I hope you enjoy it. It is a real powerhouse of a build because it gets started real hot, and since the crits due to the overwhelm tactics are online from the beginning, you just hit like a truck. The moment you have Spawnkin and Houndmasters going, you can go out and dominate whatever you want, because your tier 1 units are obscenely good at busting down people quite quickly. Just try to pick up supporty heroes to mitigate that weakness in healing, and you're good to go. So feel free what you think. Feel free to tell me what you think about it. If you have any ideas or recommendations, what you want to see differently there, I'm all ears. I enjoyed this build a lot. It's been, in my humble opinion, one of the strongest Reaver builds I did design so far. Also, feel free to tell me in the comment section what kind of build guides you want to see next. I am constructing some old school builds next. I'm moving away from the Reavers soon. Maybe there will be a Battle Mage Reaver build in between. I just love these guys, but we'll see about that. Thumbs up would be really appreciated, and feel free to subscribe. There's also this description box thing with lots of links in there, and if you want to support the channel, I'd be very happy about that. Check out Patreon, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. And a big thanks to everybody who already did that, and also I extend that big thanks to everybody who's still watching after I did all that nasty advertisement. I hope you had a great time here, and have a good one until we meet again. Bye bye.